I'm going to do that again. Thanks, Heather. I'd like to welcome everybody to our council meeting September the 13th. We will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. I have no announcements this particular evening. Are there any council members with a disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move down now to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Council Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Just wondering if we could have, under other matters, just a quick update around the status of the OFDU and the county council meeting and how that went under other matters. And also we could have just a brief discussion, a brief update from staff around preparations for the September 22nd mandatory vaccination. If there's anything that council should be aware of as that date moves forward.
Certainly, if other members of the council are comfortable with that, and Greg, you're okay with providing the updates, then I'd like a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as amended with those two items added to other matters. I see Councillor Howie, Councillor Allen, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, we've got two sets of minutes, council. We have our public meeting, section 45 public meeting on August 16th, and then the regular council meeting of August 16th. Are there any questions or concerns with the minutes? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Just a motion to approve.
Deputy Mayor has moved to approve the two sets of minutes, seconded by Councillor Powers. I'll just give you a quick update. Our 197-2021 in the minutes deals with council's authorizing our CAO to submit an application to the Green Stream Fund for the ICIP Crystal Springs water main replacement. I talked with MPP Piccini this past Friday. He says it remains his #1 priority in his writing, and he is going to try to arrange a meeting with Minister Surma and himself and myself and Greg and Craig Brooks to discuss the application. I haven't yet confirmed that that's been arranged, but hopefully it will be sometime soon, and that certainly will help. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, and through the mayor and to the mayor, I realize it's going to take time for that meeting. Should we expect early, January that we may receive a nay, or what time frame do you feel you would be anticipating?
I couldn't answer that, but I would expect and hope it would be before January. I mean, he made this commitment to us last Friday, and we have submitted the application. MPP Piccini also included a very, very good letter of support that went with the application. So I'm cautiously optimistic that things will happen sooner than that. Go ahead, Greg.
And just an update for council on timing. So it goes in. It has to be approved provincially, and then it has to be approved federally. So in the guidance documents that they provided to us, that they had hoped to have approval by the end of the first quarter of 2022, and and so they've asked that projects not start before the 1st of May 2022, and then once things have been approved and you get a signed contract, you're able to start. So we put in our application that we would start probably in July of 2022 if we are funded.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Okay, so we did have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes. Heather, did I call the vote on that? I don't think so. All in favor of that motion to approve the minutes? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving down the agenda. There's no minutes from committees or boards. We do have one delegation, and I see Jean Cartier is on the screen, and Peter Nielsen, and they were going to discuss the county's transportation plan update with regards to ORV use in county roads. So welcome, gentlemen. Jean, are you going to take the lead on this?
I am, Mr. Mayor Taylor. Thank you very much. So I will share my screen with the presentation for this evening. Can you see it? Yep. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to present before council this evening. Have with us tonight Peter Nielsen, as you've mentioned, who is with the County of Peterborough. And I have Diana Adley, who is with Stantec Consulting, who is our teaming partner in delivering the study. So as you mentioned, the presentation this evening is to update council on the progress of the county's off-road vehicle use on county roads study. Also spend a little bit of time sort of updating you sort of where we're at with the project, summarizing the county's decision-making process at this time going forward. Talk a little bit about the potential approaches for addressing off-road vehicle use on county roads, and just spend a little time outlining what our next steps in the study are, including our engagement process. But before I get into talking a little bit more specifically about the study, I thought it was important just to, it might be a reminder for some members of council, might be some new information, with respect to the regulatory framework that governs the use of off-road vehicles on Ontario roads. So the Highway Traffic Act is the governing regulation that's in effect as it applies to off-road vehicle use on Ontario roads. There's a specific regulation under the Highway Traffic Act that deals specifically with off-road vehicle use on highways, which applies to all public roads in the province. The regulation under the Highway Traffic Act works in conjunction with the Off-Road Vehicles Act, which is a much broader piece of legislation that deals with the use of ORVs throughout the province on whether that be on private property or wherever. And it specifies things like, vehicle dimensions, safety requirements, things of that nature that govern the ownership and use of off-road vehicles in the province. There has been some changes, though, in the regulatory framework in the past year. On January 1st, the province enacted a change to the off-road vehicle provisions in the Highway Traffic Act, which in essence has allowed off-road vehicle use on on a number of lower tier municipal roads, including the county or the township of Otonabee-South Monaghan. And it is now in place. So it's something that's certainly of interest to a number of townships like yourselves in terms of how best to administer the use of off-road vehicles. Basically what the regulation allows you to do is pass bylaws that can either restrict or prohibit the use of off-road vehicles on some or all of your roads. But what's important to note is that this change in regulation didn't affect the county. It was not one of the named municipalities that the change to Regulation 31603 affected. So in essence, the existing county bylaw regarding the use of off-road vehicles is still in place. And basically it says that off-road vehicles can't be operated on a county road unless it's permitted specifically by bylaw. So currently in the county, the various municipalities have different ways of dealing with off-road vehicle use. So your neighbors to the west, Cavan Monaghan, currently do not permit off-road vehicle use on any of its roadways. So their bylaw strictly prohibits it. The township of Duro-Dummer has a bylaw that allows limited off-road vehicle use on a couple of its roadways. And then there's the three sort of, I guess, more northern and eastern municipalities have bylaws that allow off-road vehicle use on all of their roads. Yourselves, Asphodel, Norwood, and Selwyn currently do not have bylaws regulating the use of off-road vehicles on public roadways. As noted, the county has a bylaw that regulates the use of off-road vehicles, and it allows off-road vehicle use on 11 county road sections in the township of Havelock, Belmont-Methuen. So that's sort of the only outlier. Everywhere else in the county, off-road vehicle use is prohibited from using county roads. So far, our work has involved some technical analysis as well as a series of engagement activities. We've conducted 2 rounds of consultation to date. The first round happened about a year ago where we kicked off the study, and we did our first round of public surveys to identify specific issues and locations of interest for off-road vehicle use on county roads. And then later in the year and early into this year, we did some more selective outreach to stakeholders and interested parties to get their feedback on where they would envision off-road vehicle use being important in the county, where they're observed situations of it occurring, and locations where it wouldn't be preferred to happen. So we're trying to get a better sense as sort of the prevalence of off-road vehicle use currently in the county, and especially on county roads. The Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee has also entertained some delegations from interested parties and participants in off-road vehicle use. So there was a session in April where 8 different groups appeared, including representatives from the police, representatives from different users groups, residents groups, that had the opportunity to present their views on the use of off-road vehicles on county roads. As well as we've had a series of meetings with staff from the lower tier municipalities, as well as the Hiawatha and Curve Lake First Nations to get their input into the use of off-road vehicles on county roads. So far, we've had quite a bit of feedback, and suffice to say, there are very different opinions on the use of off-road vehicles on county roads. There are a number of people that favor the use of off-road vehicles, and there's a lot of people that don't favor the use of off-road vehicles, to sort of put it quite simply. It tends to be an issue that people usually have strongly held opinions on one side or the other, but there are a lot of valid and interesting points that people have made that we're certainly taking into consideration as we move forward. So as I mentioned, the county has established a decision-making process. So the end of May, early June, we had some presentations to this Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee and County Council to get their endorsement of this 6-stage process that's on the screen in front of you. Currently, we're in stage 4 of the process, where we're consulting with the lower tier municipalities, the First Nations representatives, as well as the general public. And our goal through this is to gather feedback on the approaches I'm going to talk about in just a second, as well as any concerns or thoughts about if there is implementation going forward, what should that look like? So right now, as I said, we're in stage 4. Based on what we hear over the next few weeks or so, we'll be putting together a recommendation that will go to the Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee regarding the preferred approach for moving forward and suggestions around implementation. And then if County Council was to adopt those recommendations, or whatever recommendations do get approved, then staff would move forward with implementation of the approved strategy. And it's going to certainly entail education and communication elements, because that's an extremely important element of the whole off-road vehicle use consideration. As I mentioned, we've come up with sort of 3 general approaches. I'm not going to say that they're necessarily all encompassing, but you can usually fit most possible options within them. So in terms of the approaches we're looking at, there's sort of the 2 extremes of where the county allows off-road vehicle use on all of its roadways, which we're calling alternative 1. And then there's the other extreme where the county doesn't allow off-road vehicle use on any of its roadways, which is what we're calling alternative 3. Alternative 2 is sort of down the middle, where the county acknowledges that there are certain roads within Peterborough County that it makes sense to allow off-road vehicle use on, but it may be a select subset of the county's roads for a variety of reasons, whether that may be the infrastructure just isn't capable of safely accommodating off-road vehicle use. It may be adjacent land uses or other factors that play into it not being a suitable or a more suitable location for off-road vehicle use. So what you'd end up with as an outcome of alternative 2 is some form of network of off-road vehicle routes on county roads. And in some municipalities, it might be the entire county road set, and in other municipalities, it may only be a select one. So there's a degree of flexibility within alternative 2. And by no means have we arrived at a particular solution. And that's why we're going through the process right now of consulting with the area municipalities, as well as interested parties to get their feedback on the preferred approach. And coming up with our recommendation on the preferred approach, we'll be taking into consideration a lot of the feedback that we've already heard. So there's a lot of considerations to factor in. Most importantly, the legislation and the regulations have to comply with those, as well as the benefits that we've heard, as well as the disbenefits that we've heard of ORV use, factor those into the evaluation, as well as take into consideration other factors such as enforcement, which has been a key topic that we've heard about from most of the other area municipalities that we've done presentations to, as well as some of the impacts of property and infrastructure. Now, alternative 2 is the only one that sort of requires a little bit more explanation. The alternative 1 and 3 I would think are relatively straightforward from the perspective it's all or nothing. Alternative 2, though, would require some identification of select routes within the county on their roads for the use of off-road vehicles. So to come up with that network of routes, we've gone through a bit of a technical exercise so far, where we've done this 5-step process, as I've shown on the slide, of identifying a series of evaluation criteria and factors that we've used to come up with a set of county roads that could potentially have merit for use for off-road vehicles, developing a database of information that complies with those evaluation factors that enables us then to score those road segments to come up with ones that either passed or failed in terms of the minimum technical requirements. And then we looked at those routes that passed the quantitative evaluation for their qualitative basis. So things like proximity and service to commercial uses, for example, is an example that we would take into consideration. And finally, based on all of that evaluation, the technical analysis, we've come up with a conceptual network plan that is by no means final or defined at this point, but is really just allowing us the opportunity to get feedback on the concept of a network prior to bringing it forward to County Council. So the conceptual network is illustrated here. There are a few county roads that are identified in Otonabee-South Monaghan that would be on county roads for ORV use. So there is the potential, if, for example, this network was adopted for the ORV use to be permitted on certain county roads within the township. So as I said, we're by no means at the point of saying this is the recommended alternative. We're bringing forward the network at this time, just given the fact we wanted to be efficient with going and consulting with the public, so that if alternative 2 is selected, we would at least have some feedback on a network. So a couple things that are still sort of simmering based and going to be impacted by what we hear through the consultation process. Definitely the extent and the configuration of the network, if alternative 2 were selected, is something that still needs to be rectified. We also need to give consideration to the state of the county's road shoulders, because for the most part, ORVs would be expected to travel on the shoulders. So in some locations within the county, there just isn't much in terms of a shoulder, at least a safe location on the shoulder. So we have to reconcile if in those locations, for example, ORVs would have to travel in mixed traffic with other vehicles, or whether that's a safe option. And if it isn't, then what would it take to upgrade the shoulders on the county roads to make them usable for ORV use? There's also an absence of signing pavement markings and roadside safety standards and guidelines. So there's currently not a signing standard that contemplates the mixed use of ORVs within the road allowance. There's signs, for example, primarily for vehicles on roadways, but over the years, there's been development of signs for cyclists, for pedestrians. There's not an equivalent at this point in time yet for ORVs. So it's something that the county's struggling with a little bit in terms of ensuring that they provide proper guidance to all roadway users, but not have to come up with something that's unique in Peterborough County that may not be common or maybe not be understood by all road users. Obviously, risk mitigation and insurance are important considerations for municipal corporations. So it's definitely something that we're giving some further thought to, as well as restrictions and enforcement. That seems to be one of the hot topics that we're hearing from most municipalities, is in terms of how best to regulate and enforce whatever the outcome is of the study. And then finally, and certainly this is by no means the last on the list, but financial impacts for the county and its lower tier municipalities of whatever the solution is for ORV use on county roads. So our next steps are to complete our municipal council presentations. We have 2 left next week, and then we'll have had the opportunity to make the presentation to all of the municipalities within the county. We're in the process right now of conducting online public consultations, so the information is available on the county's website currently. So based on what we hear through this feedback and through our further evaluation, we'll be bringing back a strategy to the Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee for the purposes of their consideration. And then depending on what the steering committee agrees on, then it's likely to go to county council for final review and adoption of whatever the recommendation may be. And we're anticipating that's going to be late this fall. We've separated the ORV component from the overall Transportation Master Plan study, simply because it's such a significant and important aspect of it. And then, what we'll be doing is integrating the recommended strategy into the overall Transportation Master Plan as it comes forward. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has with regard to the project.
Okay, thank you very much, Gene. And before we do open up to council, I'll make a question, then just confirm something with you. This is an issue that county council has been wrestling with for as long as I've been on county council. I'm sure, Gene, you're aware of it, and I know Peter is. So my question to you is, this presentation tonight is really just for information purposes. I'm hoping with the opportunity to ask questions and receive some feedback, but certainly I don't believe it's fair to expect our council to make a decision on this tonight. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, absolutely. It's for your information. We just wanted to update you on what's happening. And if you have any feedback at this point with regards to any aspect of it, we'd be happy to take that. And that's going to be something that we're going to be discussing with the Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee, is in terms of how best to formally engage the lower tier municipalities in the outcome of this.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll open it up now. Any questions from members of council to either Gene or Peter? Councillor Howie, go ahead.
Yeah, very, very good report. Very interesting. And I can understand both sides of people that want to, be able to ride on the roads, and where people that don't want them on the roads. I think the biggest concern that I have is being on the fire department, always hearing about the accidents with the four-wheelers on the different roads. Somehow we have to, if we're going forward, it's got to be made safe. And that'd be my biggest concern.
Thank you, Ken. Any response to that, gentlemen, or the point has been made?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That's a common topic of concern that has been expressed throughout the study. And one of the things that we've looked at in terms of coming up with the network is the history of any ORV related collisions on county roads. And so we're taking that into consideration as we move forward.
Thank you. Okay, I believe I saw Councillor Powers and then Deputy Mayor Clark. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Just a question around the consideration for, as you're developing, or if you land on a particular route, what the impact could be to the lower municipality by developing that route through that municipality. And a good example is in the slide that you had regarding the conceptual plan, you see County Road 2 being leveraged or potentially part of the network plan. Obviously there would be an expectation from the users of that county road who are using off-road vehicles to be able to branch off of that onto township roads to reach access points as needed. So I'm curious, as you're working through your master plan or the ORV portion of that, are you taking into consideration or evaluating the potential impacts, or expectations is probably a better word, on the lower tier municipalities as a roadway has turned over to permit ORVs through their municipality.
Okay. Through Mayor Taylor to Councillor Powers, that's a very good question, Councillor. So we had a meeting with the Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee this morning, and we're updating them on the progress of these presentations to local councils. And you're not the first sort of council that has identified, the necessity for engagement with the lower tier partners to make the network work at the end of the day. So what we were reminded of, though, is that it's sort of almost a two-step decision process for the county. First, they have to decide whether there's going to be ORVs allowed on county roads. And then if they are going to allow ORV on county roads, then it will be establishing where they're allowed. So we're anticipating that, it's sort of almost a chicken and egg thing. I think county council wants to determine whether ORVs are compatible on county roads before they reach out to the lower tier municipalities to talk about specific routing. But we have to give them an idea as to where specific routing might go to get an appreciation of what the network might look like. So I think what we're anticipating is that there would be further engagement with the lower tier municipalities to come up with a overall network from the county's perspective. But at this point in time, the county only has control over its roads. So it wants to establish the principle before actually getting into the details. And I think that's going to likely be where we're going to end up in terms of that, because there are a number of the other municipalities sort of in the more northern reaches are extremely keen to get permission to use county roads, whereas the ones sort of more like around your area, like Cavan and Selwyn, aren't quite as anxious to see the use. So it's going to be a bit of a delicate balancing act, as you can appreciate, but there will be further, I anticipate there'll be further outreach before this goes forward.
Okay, thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Gene. Deputy Mayor Clark, you had a question?
Yes, through the mayor. So just a comment, noting those gaps, and if the network isn't inclusive, I'm concerned about vehicles being parked on the side of the road and then the four-wheelers taken off. So that safety with parked vehicles and then accessing the network with the off-road. The other question to you, in looking at this network, and you mentioned the shoulders of the roads and assessing them, is this network, is most of these shoulders, are they certainly in good condition to compensate, or is this network determined not using that criteria?
Yeah. Through the mayor to Deputy Mayor Clark. So the ideal goal of this exercise is to have a completely connected network that allows people to get to the key destinations. So obviously one of the key destinations in your area is getting to the Ganaraska Forest. That's one of the key destinations. So obviously it would require traversing a couple of the townships. And right now there's no continuous county road that enables that to happen. So obviously there'll need to be further dialogue with the townships to talk about, the connectivity of the network in doing that. So the ideal goal at the end of this is not to have gaps. I think that's where we envision seeing this. But if there's going to be gaps, then there'll have to be mechanisms to deal with that, and we'll have that contingency in place for the county. And it's a good point you've made about parking and things of that nature. Because ideally, as I said, we don't want to have gaps in the network. We want people to be able to get from point A to point B. The second point with respect to the, I'm sorry, I think I've lost that point.
The shoulders you mentioned.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah,
My
evaluate
apologies.
the shoulders. Yes.
Yeah. So it hasn't been a criteria, one of the key criteria for us in terms of what the adequacy of the shoulders are. So primarily we've tried to ensure that the routes are on roads with shoulders. But there are some locations where there aren't as well-developed shoulders, and that's I think an important consideration in some locations where some of the municipalities are more anxious to see it, and to enable it to happen, the county would have to improve their shoulders to do it. Peter, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add about that.
Thank you, Gene. Good evening, Council, through the chair. With respect to road shoulders, safety is a critical component. Within the context of the regulations, ORVs are basically directed to drive on the shoulders where it is safe and where there is a proper platform. Without that would require the driver to make some assessment as they're traveling on the roadway to determine whether the shoulder that's in front of them can accommodate the ORV to travel on that shoulder. Where it's not able to accommodate, the ORV would be directed onto the travel surface. So that's a conflict point that will have to be addressed as we move forward.
And if I may follow up through the mayor. So first of all, thank you for the presentation and coming to council. I just ask if it isn't on our website for OSM for the consultation, if we do put it on the website for our residents, and I know it is a contentious issue. When we look at our own network and hooking up here, I imagine that staff will be asking, or council will be asking staff to look at liability and insurance implications for our own municipality, as well as I know the county is also looking at that too, because that's as you say, safety and certainly liability are two big ones. So thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation, and I will turn it back to the mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions from members of council? Is there any staff member wants to ask a question or seek clarity on anything in this one? So seeing no hands, gentlemen, have a number of comments and questions. I wonder if we could just try to go through quickly. First of all, I want to make the point, and I think this is very important, that regardless of what decisions are made with regards to ORV use on county or township roads, agricultural use is exempt. Agricultural use was allowed when they weren't permitted on township roads, and agricultural use should continue. We're talking about recreational ORV use, not work-related, which in this area, agriculture is huge. So Gene and Peter, I think you have to make that distinction, okay? If a farmer is trying to access one parcel of land or another using his four-wheeler, they should be allowed to continue to do that. So that's not recreational use. ORV use, if I'm not mistaken, includes dirt bikes, but it does not include snowmobile. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. Yep.
All right, thank you. Something you're probably aware of, and it factors into any decisions that are made, is there are no public ORV trails in Otonabee-South Monica. The only public trail is the Trans-Canada Trail, and ORV use is not permitted on that trail. So we have in our township no public off-road trails. When the county made the decision a number of years ago to permit ORV use on certain sections of county roads, and Peter, you were part of this discussion, I remember, there was clear parameters put around what was required from those roads to allow ORV use to be permitted. And first of all, it had to be a connecting link. So in other words, if you wanted to access one trail to another and you had to traverse a small portion of the county road to do it, it would be considered. The shoulders had to be a minimum width, I believe. It had to be I forget the class, Peter, but it couldn't be a major county road with a high volume of traffic. I can't remember what we decided about signage, but there was certainly adequate signage was needed. So it wasn't a case where any and all county roads were up for consideration. There was clear parameters put around which sections of which roads would be permitted. And And I really think the county is well served by continuing with that policy. We have to be very careful to just not to have it the Wild West out there with regards to ORV use. And in your map where you're proposing new routes, Gene, I'm wondering if you look at County Road 2, it comes west through Keene and then it just stops. And there's a break in the proposed route, and then it picks it up again, I guess, somewhere within Cavan Monaghan's boundary. What is the reason for that gap, for that break in that section?
To you, Mr. Mayor, because there's, to my understanding, and I could be incorrect here, but the county road doesn't continue through that particular section. So in essence, it would have to, as I said, for continuity, you would have to travel on Township Road for complete continuity. So as I said, we're sort of in a chicken and egg thing, in terms of, I'll be frank, some of our earlier maps were more inclusive of all of the roads within the county, not just the county roads. But given the fact that we're still sort of establishing the principle first of RORVs acceptable and permissible on county roads, before we actually get into where, the decision was made to focus on the county roads at this point in time. But we had a very similar comment from the council in Cavan Monaghan, the exact same comment about the fact there's a gap, and it's a function of the existing county road network.
Thanks, Gene. Peter, perhaps I'm trying to make sense out of that particular route. Is it ending just before the roundabout, or what is?
Yeah,
what
sorry,
is that?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's a connection on a township road between County Road 2 onto County Road 21 and through the roundabout. So that network connection would necessitate use of the township roadway to provide the connectivity. Okay,
thank you. Okay, gentlemen, that's the comments and the questions that I had. This is a big issue, and it's going to require a lot of thought and a lot of discussion. I'm going to ask our CAO, Greg, and Greg's joining us, by the way, from Holidays. He's in Prince Edward Island at the moment, so I'm not sure if that background is real or not. But Greg, what would you suggest would be the best way for our township to proceed from this point forward on this issue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to the delegation. As Gene and Peter have advised us, is that they want to look at coming up with the criteria for the county road use and potential networks, and come up with that policy first. I think that makes some sense. We've had some recent conversations around that, and then once that's they've asked us for feedback here this evening, and there'll be follow-up feedback, I'm sure. But once that sectional network and those parameters are developed, I think it would be best, and I think you are going to be coming back to townships, if I understand correctly, the sort of the process to sort of say, this is what the county is looking at, and this is what the county's approved for their standard, and then coming back to townships and saying, does this make sense to your particular jurisdiction? And if it does, then we would then develop our own local policy with respect to that. So I think that would be my comment, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure, Gene and Peter, whether those are, in hearing your particular presentation, that was the process you guys were looking at as the second phase.
Okay, thank you. So, Gene, does that meet your expectations then, at least for tonight, that we simply receive the presentation and wait to see what decisions county council will make with regards to county roads, and then have it come back to us for further discussion, depending on what the outcome might be for Otonabee-South and Monaghan? Is that a fair way to sum it up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think that's a fair way to sum it up. To be completely transparent, we haven't, as I noted on the decision-making slide, when we go back to the Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee and then whatever the steering committee decides to recommend to county council. At this point in time, our decision-making process contemplates presenting them a strategy. And that strategy could be, as far as say alternative 2 with a network. It could be no to ORVs on any county roads. It could be a variety of different strategies. So I think what we're starting to hear from a number of the municipalities is there's definitely needs to be some more collaboration between the lower tier municipalities and the county once the county establishes the principle of whether ORV use is acceptable on county roads and the criteria around its use. So I suspect at this point in time, that's probably as far as we can go. We don't have any further direction from county council to come back with a specific direction on going back to the lower tier municipalities. But I anticipate, based on sort of what we've heard of late, that there would be some value in doing that. But that'll come to county council, in terms of what the recommended next steps are going to be. So you'll have that opportunity at that point in time, to help guide the next steps.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Gene. I think that you will find around county council table that the members will want, as the decisions are made and more information is available, they'll want that to come back to their respective councils for consideration and input. And as far as I can't imagine opening up all county roads to ORV use. And I just can't imagine that. And I'm going to give you an example. It's not an Otonabee-South Monaghan Township, but County Road 18, I believe, Peter, is a county road that goes up through to Bridgenorth. There are certain times of the year where the average annual daily traffic count on that road is higher than some sections of the 401. It's too busy for ORVs, in my view. It's not my township, but it is a county road. So I really think that as we're considering what roads to open up, what not to, traffic volume has to be a major consideration. And I know that county roads are classified and volume is part of that classification. So that needs to be also part of the conversation. So
agreed. Yeah, that is one of our criteria. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you. So with that then, gentlemen, I certainly thank you for the presentation and wish you well as you travel down this road, because it's a bumpy one and it's not straight either. But for now, though, all we really need from our council, just a motion to receive the delegation for information purposes. I'm seeing Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Allen. Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor? That is carried.
And
go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, just through the mayor, is this information on our own website to encourage input?
It's on the county website, and I don't know what are the lower tiers doing. Peter, you might know that. Or is this also being posted on the lower tiers websites?
Through the chair, we've circulated as much information, and I believe our communications department has put forward requests for as much information to be posted as available. So that would be at the township's discretion. But there's if you go to the county website and just do a keyword search on ORV, the information is available. Plus, we have just started on September 9th some additional public survey result. It's being undertaken right now as a public information center with a recorded message and the opportunity to provide some feedback through an online survey. So we would greatly appreciate more information on your website. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Greg, can you tell us what have we been doing or what can we do in the future for this one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess what we can do is, so first of all, the presentation that you have here tonight and the links in the presentation is on our website because it's on our council agenda. So we can take those particular items and make do some other postings on our Facebook and Twitter page with the links for the surveys and those types of things. So we can take from what we have, and if we don't have what we're looking for, we can be in touch with Peter and Jean and get some of that information. But we have been trying to post it as pieces come along, and certainly this particular presentation and links are on our website.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, and the date for input is, we're coming close to it. We only have a few more days, do we not, for public input?
Through the chair, the online PIC is available from September 9th through to October 7th.
Okay. Okay, so we've made the motion to receive the delegation. We've thanked the Peter and Jean for attending tonight, and we'll look forward to this issue progressing in whatever fashion that is. Thank you very much. Okay, moving down the agenda now. 10.1, the Public Works Activity Report. And I see Craig Brooks is on the screen. So Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is my first report to council, and happy to be here to present what we've been busy doing at in the Public Works Department. Obviously, this year has provided some challenges to our road network with regards to how we've been receiving our precipitation through the summer, and we've been getting sort of weeks worth of rain in 20-minute spurts. So it's been challenging to stay on top of some of the maintenance throughout the township, alongside doing major reconstruction work on Drummond Line that is moving ahead very well. As of today, we've just finished laying all the new material on Drummond Line. So starting next week, Miller Paving will be in to do the tar and chipping for Drummond Line. So we look forward to having that project complete, so we can refocus on some of the other maintenance activities that we will be requiring to do in the fall. One of those things, of course, is dust control, and the rain has certainly offered some challenges with respect to dust control. We've had dry spells followed by quick bursts of rain, which in the dust control world poses a lot of challenges. In one regard, with the long dry spells, we tend to get more dust happening, and with the heavy rains, it's nice to get the precipitation that sort of reactivates that calcium and binds that dust layer on the road. But with the heavy rains, it actually can wash it away to a certain degree. So we continue to monitor the roads, and certainly thank residents for calling in from time to time to let us know some troubled areas, for sure. And as soon as tomorrow, actually, being that we've got all the gravel done, we're going to start to redeploy some activities around dust control with grading and such. The other activity that we're really focusing on is the edging of the roadways, and we're doing that for a couple reasons. One of the main reasons is we really want to extend the life of our roads, be it gravel roads, surface treatment. They all need to be able to shed water, and through winter operations, we tend to build up an edge on the sides of the roads, and we're looking to go out and just get that edge off the road so the water can shed off the roads properly. And it really helps if we continue this program over the next few years. It really allows us to get more useful life out of these roads. So and it also prevents us from having to redeploy forces to deal with washouts. Brushing is another thing that we're looking to do, and we're going to have staff brushing sections of roadways, and that does a couple things. It keeps our roads safe for sightline purposes when residents and visitors are traveling the roadways, and it also preps us for winter control in the sense that it opens up the roadways to sunlight and actually allows the roads to thaw instead of staying iced over or snow covered. Along with this, ditching is also a priority. Again, it allows that road network to function, to shed water, and to really retain its integrity. The one challenge around ditching is we've been having a lot of trouble getting locates. They're inundated at some of the third-party locating companies to get all of these locates done. So we've been waiting longer than normal times, and they've sent us out emails to tell us that there will be delays in some of those locates. So that's one of the challenges we're working around with respect to ditching. And signage, as it was presented to council, I believe a couple months ago, the results of the retro reflectivity testing that was done across the township. So we do have high priority signs that were identified out of that report. And those signs have been ordered, and we did receive them this week. So our staff will start to put up those signs and take down old signs that didn't pass the current standards for reflectivity or condition. Seasonal maintenance, as it says in my report, we continue to identify areas of concern in terms of potholes. We're going to start to look at those over the next month or two, trying to get those potholes patched up before winter. We continue to grade, and we've even started to redeploy our roadside mower for a second cut because of the exceptional growing conditions over the summer months. So, and as I said, the capital work is going very well. We've added about 100 millimeters of new gravel to the roadway, and we're looking at doing final grading on Drummond Line between Highway 7 and County Road 2. And the tar and chipping will likely take 3 days to complete. And at that point, the job will be deemed complete as well. So looking forward to that. The waste transfer station is fully operational, and we reopened the reuse center as of August 13th, with the exception of children's toys due to public health concerns over that. So but for the reuse center, it is open, and residents are using it as they did prior to it closing. The clear bag program, it's been in effect for close to a year, and we're seeing the results of that. It's only in the first quarter, but we're seeing a 7%, that should say increase actually in my report, a 7% increase in curbside pickup since last year. And that can be an indicator of the uptake of the program, as curbside is required to have clear plastic bags. Year to date, garbage disposal across the county is up by almost 8%, but in Otonabee-South Monaghan, there's been a marginal decrease of 0.75%. And I'm sure all of council and Mr. Mayor has reviewed that quarterly garbage report. We really won't have definitive numbers until we receive the fourth quarter report, which will probably be in 2022. And at that time, I'll provide a full overview and comparison year over year for garbage. Water and wastewater. Keene Heights and Crystal Springs Algety drinking water systems, they have been operating very well. We did have one minor issue on July 7th. There was a water main break that affected 14 homes for approximately 5 hours, and the boil water advisory was not required. They were able to repair that with an air gap, which is standard to providing a repair or doing a repair without risk to the public water supply. The Burnham Meadows sewage lift station. We're working with the Burnham Meadows, the engineers for Burnham Meadows, to ensure emergency access to that station. So I've been talking to the engineers. There were some concerns from the operating authority to gain access to that in the event of a power outage. That has been resolved as of this week. They've ensured that they can get large equipment in there If they need backup generators or pumps or any sorts of mobile units, they can actually get in there and access that. So we wanted to ensure that issue was resolved, and that's been done. And that concludes my first report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Very good. Thank you, Craig. Questions to Craig on his first report? And before I take questions, I will mention to council that we have a roads committee meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. So some of the information that is contained in this report will be discussed further at the roads committee meeting tomorrow. I saw Councillor Powers. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Good report, Craig. Thank you. Just a question around the brushing. Brushing tends to generate interest from our residents. Do we, if you can help me remember properly, do we send out communication notification to the residents on a particular roadway that brushing will be occurring on a particular time period and what that means? I'm just thinking proactively getting ahead of the game a little bit and letting folks know instead of them driving home from work one day and then having some concerns with the outcome.
Yes, thank you. Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Powers. We do have a standard notice for brushing activities that we will be sending out. It will be starting later this week. So we will send that notification out to the affected residents in that area. And we'll continue to do so in any areas we move to.
Okay, great. And just one follow-up question, if I can, Mayor Taylor. Just regarding the garbage collection, it's interesting to see the increases across the board at the curbside for most of the municipalities year over year. It looks like. I'm curious. I'm just speculating. The remote work and children at home aspect probably has something to do with that curbside increase in garbage collection. Is my expectation. I know at least in my household, it's not. Prior to COVID, it was not common to have 5 people at home for 7 days straight every, at all hours. So I suspect that that would have some impact on the curbside pickup.
I would certainly agree with that statement.
There's a couple of changes, Craig, that our former Director of Public Works made to our brushing program. And one I think that was, I think it's fairly significant, was we agreed to stop at the 1st of April. And that was in keeping with the expanded bird nesting season that's occurring now primarily because of climate change. So I think that's a big change that that council agreed to and the director recommended, and it will help a little bit. I think Deputy Mayor, did you have your hand up, buddy?
Yes, I did through the mayor. So welcome and thank you for your first report, Craig. It was great. Just a couple of things with the roadside dusting being redeployed. Please hit the areas with the most complaints. I would appreciate that with all my calls. And the other thing is just around Burnham Meadows, and maybe this is more to Greg than Craig. We had an issue there with runoffs and going into the waste system. Any concerns around that? Has that all been ratified? Just your comments, Greg, if I may, through the mayor.
Yes, Deputy, Mr. Mayor, through the Deputy Mayor. In this particular case, we've been having a series of conversations around servicing matters and extension of services in that particular area, because they are building out some of the new subdivision pieces, and Mr. Brooks has been involved in that conversation. When we did have that one section of heavy rain, we immediately had our township engineer from Engage Engineering. So Paul Hurley had a conversation with the engineers and with the developers at Safe Harbor to put forward our requirements related to silt and silt management and those types of things. We've also had a conversation with the Otonabee Regional Conservation Authority about that as well, to make sure that they're meeting some of those particular guidelines. So those things are being put in place. There's a lot of construction taking place up there right now. They are building a Safe Harbor Way going in there, so there's a lot of material that's being moved around. So when we get heavy rains, we get some silting happening. So we just want to make sure that they're following acceptable construction practices during those particular activities, and that's been a continuous conversation, I know, since I've taken on my role here with the municipality. So if there's any other questions, Mr. Mayor, or through the deputy, I'd be pleased to answer.
No, thank you. You're on top of it, and that, thank you for that. It looks as if it's certainly being watched, and that's what we want. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I think it's worth mentioning that when we were going through the recruitment process for a Director of Public Works, Craig, if I'm not mistaken, your curriculum vitae listed extensive experience and certification in water and wastewater systems. So this, I think, is an area where that experience will serve this township well. So there's definitely a certain comfort level in that for me, and I would expect all members of council. So if there's no other, are there any other questions to Craig on this report? As I said, we do have a roads committee meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing some of these issues and others a little further. And if there are no questions, I would just entertain a motion, please, to receive the report. I see Councillor Howie and Councillor Allen. All in favor? That is received. Thank you. Okay, moving down our agenda, coming to planning. And I see the planning world is still busy. Ken is with us tonight. First is a consent application B57-21, and I'll turn it over to Ken to provide the details.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. As stated, our first application is B-57-21. The purpose of this application is to sever a vacant residential lot, excuse me, on the lands municipally addressed 1261 Atchison Road. The subject property is located south of Bartlett Road on the south side of Atchison Road, and the proposed severed lot is in the northwest portion of the subject property. There is currently a single detached dwelling, a barn, and accessory structure existing on the retained portion of the subject property, and the severed portion of the property is currently vacant. Severed parcel is approximately 0.31 hectares and has a lot frontage of approximately 38 meters. As the severed lot will not meet the lot area and lot frontage requirements of the agricultural zone, it is recommended that severed lands are rezoned from the agricultural zone to the rural residential zone, and to rezone portions of the retained lands to the environmental protection zone to protect environmentally sensitive lands. This one's relatively straightforward. If there are any questions from council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ken. Are there questions to Ken on this application from any members of council? I'm not seeing any. And Ken, I did email you earlier today with the question that I said, give it some thought because I'd ask it tonight. And the question for council's information was this lot, if it's approved, will be reasonably close to the Peterborough Airport, but outside of that 1 kilometer. Is it something to consider about putting a cautionary clause in there that the airport is reasonably close to this? Ken, what did you, after thinking about it, what did you decide on that?
I think you have raised an excellent point. And I think given the proximity of the airport to the subject property, I feel that there would be no harm done in having that cautionary clause added to the parcel. And I feel it is appropriate to have that as a condition, personally.
So Ken, if that's the case and council agrees, would it go under one of the conditions then? There would be 5 conditions attached to approval. Is that how we would deal with that?
Yes, we could add a condition. I can revise the municipal appraisal form, and I could add that condition and send that off to the county.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen, go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Sorry, I was just looking for my mute button. I was just interested in how does that work when you add that as a cautionary item to a severance? Like where does it show up? I'm presuming it shows up for potential purchasers, or even if the parcel is being held by the current owner, it would show up as something that they would see on the deed or on the is that how it looks? I just wasn't sure. wonder if you could tell me, Ken.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Taylor, I believe it would be registered on title. So potential purchasers that would show up on title when they would go through the legal processes prior to a purchase. And now I've never dealt with that personally. Perhaps someone else may have a better idea than myself, but I believe that's how it would work.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark, you had your hand up. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor. I thought that we did have a policy in place with severances that where, and I can't remember within, so that this was an automatic thing. My understanding legally was that it would go on to the first deed or first purchaser, but then it could be dropped after that. There was no way that we could have it forever and a day on the deed. So just a comment from staff around that. I think it's an excellent idea. I thought it was in place. And the other thing, I think it's just, I have no problem with this lot at all. I'll put that out, but it's rezoned from agriculture. Is it not rezoned from rural?
I believe the lands are through you, Mayor Taylor. I believe the lands are zoned agricultural, but not designated agricultural.
Okay, because with the ag and the, yes.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, most of South Monaghan ward is zoned agriculture. Almost the entire ward.
Yeah, but not designated. So therefore the
Right.
reason for the, yes, okay.
And clarification to Deputy Mayor's question, I don't have the answer to it, but we did adopt in our official plan a policy whereby any newly created lots within a certain area would have a cautionary clause put on it. It's not legally binding. It doesn't stop anything from happening. It just makes sure that the potential purchaser is aware of the fact that airport activities could impact their daily lives. This lot is just outside of that distance. So I think it's council's discretion as to whether we want to apply it or not. And I just thought I'd put it out there. We don't have to, but as Ken said, he doesn't see how it could hurt. So that's just something to consider. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Not on this particular item. I do agree with your idea and Ken's agreement as well, putting out as a clause. I do agree with that. I'm curious on a couple of other things on this actually before we move on. One was there was a requirement from ORCA, if I'm not mistaken, that vegetation removal cannot occur between April 1st and August 31st because of the Migratory Bird Convention Act that relates to this particular property. There is nothing that we need to do as part of our approval process that captures that in any way. This is done through ORCA. Is that correct? We don't put this as a clause within ours.
Through you, Mayor Taylor, that is correct. Yes.
Okay. And then the final question I had is, I know that the condition is $1,000 cash in lieu. I noticed at the end of the report, there was a different dollar amount than $1,000 cash in lieu for parkland. It was a different amount on the bottom of the report than $1,000 for park and lieu. It was $1,040. I mean, it's only $40, but I'm curious why it's 1,000 up there and 1,040 at the bottom.
That is correct. And thank you for catching that. That is that $1,040 is a reflection of that 4% fee increase. And that is my mistake. And I'll need to revise that moving forward because we have a 4% increase in our cash in lieu. So moving forward, all these applications will need to, all cash in lieu recommendations will need to state $1,040. So
Okay.
Catching that.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, thank you.
Okay, good catch, Councillor Powers. Thank you. And I think Deputy Mayor, did you have your hand up? No?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Just trying to get back. I've just gone offline here with my agenda, so just trying to get.
Okay, so at this point in time, if there's no further questions, if council is satisfied with the report and the recommendation, I would entertain a motion to receive the report and approve application B5721 with the 5 listed conditions. The 5th condition that would be added to the report is the cautionary clause about the proximity to the airport. Is council comfortable with that, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I will make
That
that
motion?
motion.
Okay, Councilor Powers, you're going to second that motion? Okay, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Ken, moving down now to application B5821.
Yes, so this is a consent application for a lot addition to an existing industrial operation on the benefiting lands. Proposed severed lands are located on the lands municipally addressed 3161 Old Norwood Road. The benefiting lands are addressed 1514 Highway 7. The subject property is located on the north side of Highway 7 at Henderson Line. The severed parcel is approximately 2.25 hectares in size and will be added onto the benefiting lands that are approximately 11.95 hectares in size. The severed parcel is currently being utilized by Drain Brothers Excavating, who owns the benefiting lands. The applicant intends to maintain the existing use of the proposed severed and benefiting lands. So this lot addition is essentially just organizing the benefiting lands so that the lands that are currently being utilized, not by the rightful owner, so they own those lands. Now, Orca has requested several materials that will be required to be submitted and reviewed prior to final approval for the consent application. These studies will precisely identify the provincially significant wetland boundary to the north of the severed lands, and it will also create plans to protect the wetlands function. The new lot line will follow the wetland boundary to ensure that the industrial uses do not encroach onto the wetland. As the severed and benefiting lands are zoned rural, which do not permit industrial uses, it is recommended that the severed and benefiting lands are rezoned to the extractive industrial zone, which will permit the existing uses. Further, it is recommended that portions of the retained lands are rezoned to environmental protection zone to protect environmentally sensitive areas on the retained portion of the subject property. Now, this one's a bit unique, and if there are any questions from council, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ken. It's okay. We can deal with unique. Questions from members of council to our planner? Deputy Mayor, go ahead. You're muted, Bonnie.
Thank you. The through the mayor, so the conditions that Orca are requiring are the conditions that will be put on at the county level then, Ken?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and the as far as the consent, then we have 3 conditions as well, 3 different conditions, so.
That is correct.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I don't have a problem.
Are there any questions, any other questions from members of council? If not, I entertain a motion that B5821 be approved with the 3 listed conditions there. Deputy Mayor's made that motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Allen is going to second that. Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. All right, Ken, B59-21.
Okay, another unique consent application. Purpose of this consent application is a lot addition for the lands addressed 1295 Heritage Line to add on to the lands addressed 1269 Heritage Line. The proposed severed parcel is approximately 1.3 hectares, and the addition will result in the benefiting lands being approximately 12.8 hectares in lot area. Will have approximately 150 meters of frontage along Heritage Line. Both the severed parcel and the benefiting lands are designated hamlet, which is a settlement area. And the lot addition will allow these lands to be developed under one owner, which will allow for the appropriate utilization of these lands. Currently, the lands are zoned, most of it is zoned future development 5, which regardless of the future development of these lands, a rezoning, a site-specific rezoning is going to be required. So it is my opinion that a rezoning is not appropriate at this time until a future developer has an idea what they would like to develop. And also, this is my opinion because they'll be able to determine or go through a wetland evaluation to determine where the wetland is exactly, and they'll be able to have a better idea where the land should be rezoned environmental protection and where it can be zoned for development. Yeah, this one's a bit unique, as I said. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, so at this particular time, Ken, it's your opinion that that the only condition attached be that a merger agreement or the undertaking through a PIN consolidation, and that any rezoning required would be done at a future date once plans are known for the lands in question, correct?
That's correct, Mayor Taylor. This is the first step to the development of these lands, and there's still a long road ahead.
Sure, okay, yeah. Okay, any questions from members of council to our planner on this one? Okay, if not, is council prepared to make a decision? Councillor Powers.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. I would like to make the motion that's presented, which is what number are we? B5921, move to the bylaw section with the conditions as stated, or condition as stated.
So it's the appropriate motion really would be just to receive the report and approve the application with the one listed condition. Okay.
Well said. Thank you.
And seconder, I think Councillor Howie, you had your hand up. Seconded by Councillor Howie. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, we move down now to bylaws, and there are two of them. Could I get a motion, please, that bylaw 2021-41 and 42 be read a first time? Deputy Clerk and Councillor Allen. All in favor? That's carried. I'd ask the clerk to review the bylaws, please.
Bylaw number 2021-41 is your council confirming bylaw for the August 16th, 2021 meeting. And 2021-42 is your policing the OPP police services contract extension, which council approved at our last meeting.
Right. Any questions to the clerk on either bylaw? And if there's no questions, I'd like a motion, please, that bylaws 2021-41 and 42 be read a second and third time, signed, sealed, and the corporate seal attached. I'm seeing Councillor Allen and Councillor Howard. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we've got four pieces of correspondence. The first is from the City of Hamilton about noise concerns for construction hours. What's council's pleasure in that one? Deputy Clerk, go ahead, Bonnie.
Motion to receive.
Received by Deputy Clerk, seconded by Councillor Allen. Call the vote to receive. All in favor? Carried. The next is supporting affordable internet from Chatham, Kent. Council's pleasure on that one. Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Motion to support.
Support by Councillor Powers, seconded by Councillor Howie. Call the vote. All in favor to support? That is carried. County of Perth relationship with MPAC. What's Councillor or Deputy Mayor? Go ahead, Bonnie.
Support.
Support by Deputy Mayor Clark, seconded by Councillor Allen. Call the vote to support. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And then Trent Lakes about OHIP eye care. And before I call the vote, I'll just give you a little background on this one. We dealt with this at County Council, I think at our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, and County Council tabled this motion because this matter right now is in negotiations with the province and the eye care doctors. So County Council felt it was best not to try to interfere in a process while it was under negotiation. So we simply tabled it. We're going to bring it back at County Council if, as and when it doesn't get remedied through discussions and negotiations. So with that, does council want to support or receive? Councillor Powers, go ahead.
I would tend to agree. The negotiations are ongoing, so I would think that we would just receive at this point.
And do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Howie. Call the vote to receive. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, Information, we have nothing. Other matters, there was 2 items that Councillor Powers wanted raised. One is the first one is the OFDU County Council pass OPA number 9 at the meeting on August the 25th. I don't know how much more you need to know than that, but County Council did approve it. There is an appeal period, which is almost over. And once that appeal period is passed, it is in full force and effect. Councillor Powers, go ahead.
So that was my question then, Mayor Taylor. So once that appeal period is over with, the township will be in a position to process OFDU applications moving forward. Is that correct?
I
guess I'll ask Greg to confirm that, but that's my understanding.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Powers, once this particular item has been confirmed and the appeal period is closed, then we would get a notification from the county. And then once that notification comes, the OPA would be in effect, and then we would be able to take applications with that regard. So there is a step from the county that they have to provide us with that acknowledgement of the appeal period piece. And I've not been in contact with the county since their meeting, so we're just waiting for that process to be fulfilled.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And the other issue was surrounding public access to our community center and other buildings. There has been a lot of confusion. There's been some information brought forward by the province and some requirements. So Greg, put you on the spot. If you could just update council on exactly what we can and cannot do, it would be appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, putting on the spot is well, what I can tell you is that we have, that the province has announced the requirement as of the 22nd of September that there is going to be a proof of vaccination requirement for certain businesses and buildings, of which it includes our recreation buildings and our offices and those types of things. I guess that's what I can tell you. And I think everybody knows that. What we're waiting for is for the province to update the Ontario regulation that's going to allow us to manage that particular initiative that has been announced. So we do not have an updated regulation as we sit here at 20 after 7 on the 13th of September. So we're awaiting that from the province. But rather than waiting, our first ice rental in our recreation facility was Saturday, so we are up and running. And we have, I along with Heather, have met on a number of occasions with Mike Nelson, who is our manager of recreation parks and facilities, to try and come up with an approach about how we're going to manage this. We've also had extensive consultations with all of the other lower tier municipalities in the county, as well as the city of Peterborough, about what kind of protocols are going to be in place for these types of facilities in the absence of any provincial regulation. So the bottom line is this, we are working with the stakeholder and user groups, and I know I had a long conversation with the mayor. I had a long conversation with Councillor Powers, who is the chairperson of the Recreation Committee, just to sort of give them a bit of an idea of what is going on. Mike has had and provided information to the user groups in writing, so our protocols for the building prior to this announcement from the province. So our protocols will be this up until the 22nd of September. There is a limit on the number of participants that will be allowed on the ice at any one time. So these protocols are very similar to what we did last year. Last year, our limit was 15. This year, our opening limit is going to be 30. And that's also under conversation amongst the municipalities. We will allow participants to come into the facility 15 minutes before and leave 15 minutes after. We will allow dressing room access based on physical distancing. But we are encouraging for the participants to come in partially dressed. We would also allow up to one spectator per participant coming into the facility. So that's how we're managing it up until the 22nd of September. Each of the sporting groups, they have to provide us with their rosters again, as they have had in last year, to identify which children are coming in or which participants are coming in for each rental. Each of the participating groups have to have a safety plan, so they have to file that safety plan with us. And they are, they've already had safety plans and updated safety plans from the previous year. And so we will be managing our facilities based on those protocols, which are not much different than what we did in 2020 and early 2021. Where it becomes a little bit more delicate is as of the 22nd of September, anybody that is eligible to be vaccinated, so those are individuals 12 years of age and over, would have to provide us with proof of vaccination to utilize and gain access into our facilities. So that being said, as of right now, that would be our requirement that we would have to fulfill, unless there are some exemptions that are provided by the province. And we've not heard of any at this particular juncture. Peterborough Public Health had sent out an email at the end of last week that advised us that they are waiting to hear about these new regulations coming forward. If the regulations don't come forward, I believe the 34 provincial health units are going to be looking at issuing Section 22 orders relating to these particular facilities. So we're waiting. And so we've advised that the sporting or the user groups at all ages of that and Mike did that about a week ago to advise them that as of September the 22nd, that proof of vaccination would be required to come into our facilities, barring something from the province as far as regulations and exemptions. So that's the information we shared with our stakeholders. And we're in a bit of a wait and see approach because we've not received anything. So if council has any questions, that's what I know as of today and this evening. And I'd be pleased to answer Mr. Mayor and members of council any other questions.
Thank you, Greg. And that email from Janet Dawson last week of the health unit, I believe you forwarded that to all council members, did you not? Right.
We did.
Yeah, thank you. Deputy Mayor, you had a question, Bonnie?
Just a comment. So this would involve all facilities owned by OSM. I'm thinking of the medical center and people going to acquire medical care. How would that affect?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that there is an exemption for people that are going to be seeking medical care. So going into hospitals and those types of things that we cannot ask for proof of vaccination for them to access those facilities. So, and then the medical center would fall into that particular category.
Okay, that's good. And then this would affect our libraries, et cetera, as well.
Libraries are covered by the library board, so they would have to come up with their policies about access. Certainly they would be, from what we're seeing in the documentation, they would be under the same provisions as the municipality would be.
Greg, in that email that you sent, there's a link and it provides a very extensive list of all the facilities and how they're affected. Everything from bingo halls to community centers to medical centers. So if council has any wonders about any particular type of building or type of use, if you go to the link and look through it, your questions will probably be answered.
And if I might, Mr. Mayor, the thing that's really challenging for us is depending on the use. So it's not by the building, it's by the use. There are different rules in place. So for instance, if our building was used as a place of worship, we would allow them to come, to people to come in as far as the, accessing building. If we were going to have something where, let's say that there was a meeting that came in, we'd have to social distance for the meeting, but if meals were served, then we're allowed to, we're covered by different rules that you could actually have less physical distancing as long as people were sitting and enjoying a meal. So that's where the restaurants come in. So we're covered by, so it's a really delicate balance. And we're speaking with my fellow CAOs across the county and actually across the province here the last few days. It's really a difficult dance, and we're hoping we've got all of our fingers and all of our toes crossed that we're going to get some guidance under some new regulations that are going to help us operate. If not, then it's going to put us in a difficult position. What I've advised, the conversation we've had is we're trying to keep our employees out of that fracas about the potential where we're going to have people who are going to want to come in that may just want to cause problems. And if we get closer to the 22nd and we have to provide it, we've had some conversations with a private security firm like Kawartha Guard, and we'll have one of those individuals at the front door of our facilities as far as our sports facilities, so that they would be there, checking for information related to vaccinations. We wouldn't put our staff in that particular regard. So that's the conversations we're having. I don't know whether they'll come to fruition, but those are the conversations and plans we're making here, going up to the 22nd of September, and have been for the last couple of months.
I think Councillor Powers had a question. Councillor Allen, I am cognizant of time here. I don't want to spend too much time on an issue we raise under other matters. More time on that than we have on a regular agenda item. So yes. Just be aware of that. So Councillor Powers, you had a question, did you?
It's not so much a question, just I guess a statement, and I'll be quick and to the point, which is I would agree with Greg, and we've had conversations that clarity is required from the province on a couple of items. In particular, when we talk about youth recreational activities, our user groups and our minor hockey user groups in particular, who are just starting up, there is within the documentation and the guidelines that are presented to or on the Ontario website that, if I'm quoting here, fitness and recreational facilities with the exception of youth recreational support. And I know that Peterborough Public Health is looking for clarification around that. What does that exactly mean? What is permitted and what is not? And I'm hopeful that we can get some clarity around that, whether or not our minor hockey folks will be able to continue or have to be checked at the door starting on the 22nd. But anyway, appreciate Greg and Heather and Mike, the work that's gone into this. This is not easy, it's complex, and it's not necessarily straightforward. Thank you.
That's for sure.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, just to add on to one minor thing, and it's not necessarily minor with Councillor Powers, we're taking that youth sport provision that's in this particular announcement to mean any participant under the age of 12. And so that's how we're sort of taking that. So they would not be eligible to be vaccinated. So they would be have access to our facilities. So that's how we're interpreting that, without any other information coming from either Peterborough Public Health or from the province.
Okay, last quick question from Councillor Allen, and we'll wrap this up.
Sure, thanks, Mayor Taylor. Greg, and you did answer some of it as far as the door check, or how you'd plan to work that, if that's the system we have to use where you have to be checked in. But you still are, can you confirm, we're still waiting for word from the province or a direction in some sort, or hope from the province that, like the talk of like a passport type system. That's what they're looking for at the door. Is that what we're hoping comes from the promise?
We're the
job,
municipal, Mr. Mayor, through, yeah, Mr. Mayor, through to, hopefully I might lose you here. I mean, my internet is unstable, and what we're trying to do here are two things: either get some clarity from the province, or getting some clarity from Peterborough Public Health. Peterborough Public Health are sort of standing with us, sort of shoulder to shoulder on this particular matter. So we're both waiting, and that's why I've said is that they've said that if there's nothing that's forthcoming, they believe that there would be something coming as a Section 22 order in order to allow us to deal with things before the 22nd of September.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Greg, for the update. And thank you for attending our council meeting tonight from the sunny shores of Prince Edward Island. There is nothing for closed session, so we have nothing further to do now than adjourn. So I'd like a motion to adjourn. I'm seeing Deputy Clerk and I'm seeing Councillor Allen. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks. And so tomorrow,